So the United States has officially carried out its first strike mission against Iran, and there is no shortage of opinions on the subject. Dave Smith would say this is exactly what 4-star General Wesley Clark foretold. Sam Harris would say that Israel is attacking a hostile theocracy largely in our interest and largely on our behalf. Noam Chomsky would say that this is another example of U.S. foreign policy enacting regime change largely in the interest of its corporations and regional partners in order to better secure its global hegemony. Ben Shapiro would say that Israel has every right to defend its borders, well into the borders of its neighboring countries. Jordan Peterson would say, well, what's your definition of war? No, not really. He would actually say that the presupposition of any conflict worth pursuing is a direct consequence of the aim taken by the United States in order to slay the dragon, which in of itself is just a manifestation of your own self-actualization. Capiche? Oh, and George W. Bush would say, weapons of mass destruction? I know her. So yes, the United States has officially entered another conflict in the Middle East, but this is also a topic of conflicting opinion. Return viewers of the channel will know that I am a huge proponent of the concept that your worldview is only as good as your personal experience and the quality of your information sources. In fact, I have a whole video series on it. But today, we are stress testing that theory in real time with the topic of Iran and US involvement in the region. I'll try to link these videos down below. There's going to be a lot of them, so here we go. Like and subscribe if you like the vibe, or check out the Patreon account or some of our other videos because we have a lot on protest music. So much protest music, we review it. Also leave a comment down below about what you think about this conflict with Iran, this conflict with Israel, with Gaza. What exactly does your information stream look like when it comes to these topics? I also find it necessary to say, super quick disclaimer, that when I talk about various other countries, like say Israel, Iran, even the United States, it's not that I'm necessarily criticizing the people, because the people there generally just want the same thing as you and me, but more often than not, it is the government, it is the people at the top that keep ruining that for everybody else. I'm not saying that people in those countries can't be wrong or that they can't be on the wrong side of history, but just generally speaking, as a rule of mine, most of my criticisms are geared at the people making the decisions, the people who are actually enacting on the behalf of that nation. And now that that's out of the way, let's get a little history over the last few decades, or centuries even. A stupidly simple overview of the last 150 years, I guess. Starting with Israel, because that's the easy one, right? Right? So the Armchair Historian probably has the best video that I've seen on this topic when it's recapping all of Israel's modern day history. The video is called How Israel Became a Country, and of course I will link it down below. So for our timeline at least, I would say that everything begins with Theodor Herzl, the father of modern day Zionism, who, in light of all the pogroms throughout history, he thought that the Jewish community would just be safer if they had their own nation state. Therefore, you have the birth of Zionism. So as Zionism gains prominence in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you get things like the Balfour Declaration or the Sykes-Picot Treaty, which effectively carved up the remnants of the Ottoman Empire, which of course fell at the end of World War I. It also created things like the British Mandate for Palestine, with the British playing a huge role later on, don't you worry. So with a mixture of Zionism and the British foreign policy interest in the Suez Canal, they thought it would be a great idea, based on biblical importance, to make a Jewish state right smack dab in the middle of a bunch of Arab states without consulting them first. No conflict of interest there. This of course heightened tensions in the region. You get many disagreements, many skirmishes, and then of course you get the Holocaust, which we don't have to describe in detail. It's almost like Mr. Herzl had a point. After the 1948 war, where Israel successfully defended itself against its neighboring countries that seeked to destroy it, Israel officially became a nation state with their first prime minister, David Ben-Gurion, and was instantly recognized by the United States, who more or less just straight up took over for the British. Because again, you have massive shared interests between the two countries. You have Israel, a democracy in the Middle East, a buffer against the Soviet Union. You get intelligence sharing, military technology sharing, so on and so forth. So Israel is established as a nation state, much to the disdain of the other Arab countries who just lost the war, but nobody felt it more than the Palestinians, who, under the Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, they suffered what is known as the Nakba, which is Arabic for catastrophe. 750,000 people displaced, cities and villages burned, people killed. Check out the channel Real Time History for the breakdown on all of this, including just about every major war. In the decades that followed, Israel found itself in a number of other wars, including the Sixth Day War, where at the end of that, they assumed control of the Gaza Strip. Again, more violence conducted by the Palestinians, more violence conducted by Israel against the Palestinians. You get the First and Second Intifada, you get the rise of Hamas, which interestingly enough, Chris Hedges has a video talking about how he actually knew one of the founders of Hamas, how he was a very educated, respected individual. He was actually a pediatrician and was at the top of his class in the University of Alexandria. And Chris says that he had a conversation with him basically saying, hey, you can't kill innocent Israeli civilians because then you lose the moral high ground. And the reply that Chris got was just cold hard statistics about how many people the Israeli government was killing in Gaza because violence begets violence. I'll link that video down below as well because I think it's super fascinating. And of course, we're skipping over so much. This is not intended to be an all-encompassing video, but if you have better sources on this topic, definitely let me know in the comments down below and I will gladly check them out because I am still learning myself. So that's the general gist of how Israel became a state, at least in terms of how it applies to this topic of the conflict with Iran. So now we will move on to just that, Iran and their history, starting in 1953 with Operation Ajax, a topic that I've spoken about on the channel before. Also, Real Time History has an excellent video on this topic as well. But the long and short of it is, in 1953, the British, of course it always goes back to the British, they basically controlled Iran's oil thanks to the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, which eventually led to the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, whose National Front Party was a broad coalition of people on the left, on the right, in the center, all geared towards opposing British influence and nationalizing their oil, so that they could use that money, the proceeds from that oil, to better their country, instead of the profits going to Britain, who, funny enough, basically nationalized the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. So, like, why couldn't they? But nope. Mossadegh was later overthrown in a coup, which installed another repressive regime, and the Anglo-Persian Oil Company then changed their name soon after to BP, or British Petroleum, because that's the playbook these days. You just change your name whenever you get too much bad press. So the overthrow of the democratically elected official brought on, eventually, the Iranian Revolution, which removed the monarchy that the US and British installed, or reinstalled really, with Operation Ajax, and that was the start of the regime in Iran as we know it now. Not long after that, you get the Iraq-Iran War, which was largely dominated by the Shia-Sunni tension. Incidentally, the United States conveniently armed both sides of that conflict, so we're just making bank left and right. This all came to light with what is known now as the Iran-Contra scandal with Oliver North. Holy shit, how many topics are we going to hit on this one video? Also, Douglas Murray, the author of Democracy and Death Cults, rightly points out that during the Iraq-Iran War, Iran used child soldiers as young as 9 extensively in that war, because Iran, being the theocracy that it is, they believed that once you die, you ascend to the afterlife, you go to paradise. So really, they were doing those kids a favor, not really. And of course, Iran did not gel with Israel, not just for religious reasons, but also because Israel was fully backed by the United States, you know, the people that earlier in 1953 overthrew their democratically elected official, all because he wanted to use their natural resources for their own benefit instead of for the British, which the British also set the groundwork for Israel as a state because of their foreign policy interests there. So I just blame this whole thing on the British, really. Not the people, though, but their government. So again, there is a lot that we are skipping over. I do not claim to know everything on this topic, but this is how I understand this topic. I don't even know what the fuck I said. So this video is more or less just setting the groundwork as I understand these issues. So that concludes the super condensed version of the history between these two countries. I understand that I skipped over a whole bunch of stuff. And in the next video, we will talk about more modern times, aka the last few years, or in some cases, 2 hours ago. But until that video, thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you like the vibe. Check out the Patreon account for exclusive videos, and check out some of our other videos for protest music reviews. We just did Jesse Wells, Propaganda. There's going to be a lot coming out in the next few weeks. We have Fishbone, Heaven Shall Burn, Scars on Broadway, Dropkick Murphys. So yeah, there's definitely a lot happening in the next few weeks. So until then, guys, stay well, stay safe, stay informed, and we will see you on the next video. Later.